Hey, good morning. Patricia Murphy here. It's Saturday. This is Seattle Now. Today we're bringing you the best from the KUOW Newsroom. We'll start with a story on how the federal attitude toward autism is showing up locally. U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced what he thinks are at least one cause and one cure for autism. But autism researchers say there's not enough evidence to back those claims. It's mostly caused by genetics, and there are no pills to cure the condition. What's needed are early diagnosis and early interventions. Eilish O'Neill has this story.
When Marianne Bryan's kids were 4, 8, and 12 years old, she had no idea they were autistic. But she did know they were struggling. There were meltdowns. One of the children banged their head against the floor.
Having a child who, as a kindergartner, was suicidal was probably the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced in my life. It's still incredibly hard to even think about it. Because there are absolutely no resources.
Bryan went to the school, the family doctor, and a psychologist. No one knew how to help.
I was like, I'm done. There has to be something.
Bryan says when she finally got diagnoses for her kids, that led her to therapies that could help them and books that could help her understand what was going on. Most autistic kids are not getting what they need as early as they need it. Annette Estes is a psychologist and director of the UW Autism Center.
It is a frustrating time because we really do know how to identify autism just as soon as it emerges. And we have a lot of really good approaches for supporting development and helping kids meet their full potential.
Most autistic kids could be diagnosed by the time they're 2, but many aren't. Sometimes because no one recognizes the signs, and sometimes because of the long wait lists at clinics that specialize in autism, or because of the steep cost of getting a diagnosis from a private psychologist, which can run thousands of dollars. Esty says once kids have a diagnosis, they need intensive interventions, which can make a huge difference.
When all these things kind of come together and kids just start taking off developmentally, really what it translates to for the child is being able to be in regular classrooms, doing a variety of activities and learning along with their peers. When kids don't get those skills, that has an opposite kind of snowball effect.
Esty says autistic kids need occupational therapy, speech therapy, parent coaching, and what's known as applied behavioral analysis, or ABA. Esty says ABA should look like play, but it has concrete goals, such as learning new communication or social skills.
Green or yellow?
Green.
Green, good job. Spin!
During a recent ABA session at the UW Autism Center, a preschool-aged child and his ABA therapists were placing colored rings on a stick. The kid knew all his colors, and his therapists were trying to get him to answer a yes or no question. Is this green? He had the knowledge, but social communication was hard for him. Every time he did say yes or no, they cheered for him.
Is this green?
No.
No, it's
That's right.
blue. Good job.
ABA is controversial. Many autistic people say this form of therapy traumatized them. Marianne Bryan says when her kids were first diagnosed, a psychologist recommended ABA, and that ended up being really harmful for her kids.
One of the things we were told to do was when explosive behaviors were happening were to close a door between us and the child, which led to severe anxiety about abandonment and separation.
Bryan says occupational and speech therapy were much more helpful. These days, all 3 of her kids are doing well. The oldest just graduated from college and is training to be a surveyor. The second is studying psychology, and the third is still in middle school. At the end of the day, parents and researchers agree it's not about a cure. It's about early diagnoses and early interventions to help kids cope and reach their full potential. Eilish O'Neill, KUOW News.
Now a story about funding for migrant students in Washington state. This summer, the Trump administration eliminated funding that helps children from migrant families attend college. From KUOW and Northwest Public Broadcasting, Ann Dornfeld and Renee Diaz look at what that means for Washington state students.
Citlali Mendoza's parents are migrant farm workers from Mexico. They help grow and pick apples in central Washington.
If my mom would have been able to finish her education, she would have definitely been an elementary teacher. That's what she dreamed of. And then I think of my dad, and his biggest dream when it came to education was going to school, finishing, and becoming an architecture or an engineer.
They push Mendoza and her brothers to work hard in school so they could have those kinds of opportunities. Mendoza prided herself in her grades, but she hadn't thought much about life after high school until a teacher encouraged her to consider the University of Washington. It felt like a long shot. It's selective, and she didn't know anyone who'd gone to school so far from home.
So I remember just thinking oh my gosh, wait, is that too crazy though?
Then a recruiter from the UW's College Access Migrant Program, or CAMP, gave a presentation at her school.
Just the mere fact of looking at her and knowing that A, she was from Prosser, which wasn't too far away from where we were, and B, she was a Latina who had also graduated UW, I immediately felt connected to her.
Mendoza says still, it was daunting to be the first one in her family to go to college. There was no one to help with financial aid forms and paperwork.
For her to say, that's everything that we help you with, that's what really sold me.
Migrant students who got accepted to the UW and the CAMP program got a lot of support in their first year, like a weekly seminar to help them acclimate to college and life in the big city. Until this year, the federal funding UW received allowed it to send camp recruiters to agricultural communities across the state.
I'm Renee Diaz reporting from Wenatchee. In the nearby Eastmont School District, college counselor Paola Ortiz saw the benefits of camp in local high schools. She says recruiters made students and their families more confident about going away to school, knowing they'd have mentors and peers with similar backgrounds.
They're geared towards supporting these students academically and emotionally, right? Having kind of a home away from home.
Camp also provided financial support that can be critical for students from families where income can be seasonal.
That's what they're designed for, is to retain these kids and make sure that they finish their first year of college and continue on.
The U.S. Department of Education has found that camp students are far more likely to stay in school. But the Trump administration has questioned the effectiveness of migrant education programs and called them extremely costly. This summer, it cut funding for migrant students. Andres Fuente is a director at the UW's Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. He led its camp program, which served about 50 students a year. Fuente says even after migrant students are accepted to the UW, they often doubt themselves.
It's helping them understand, you deserve this, you earned it, you went through the process, and the university admissions decided that you would be a successful student here.
Michael Perez grew up in the Yakima Valley and was in the UW's camp program in 2018. Perez says it was a cultural shock to move to Seattle, and he might not have finished college without the financial and moral support from camp.
They gave that foundational piece that I needed in order for me to be able to access the higher education. They gave me that bridge.
Perez is now preparing to apply for medical school. He says he was shocked to learn that camp had lost its federal funding.
If we burn that bridge down, then people don't have the access that they need. And so we're just continuing the cycle of poverty.
Citlali Mendoza says camp is the reason she applied to the UW. She won a presidential scholarship and is now a senior, looking at grad school for public policy. To her, getting rid of camp is bad public policy.
How is me learning more about class registration, financial aid, and job opportunities a harm to you or anyone else?
Mendoza says camp may be gone for now, but she'll still volunteer to translate for Spanish-speaking parents on campus tours. I'm Ann Dornfeld in Seattle.
And I'm Renee Diaz in Wenatchee.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thanks to our generous donors for your support. You can help us out by clicking the link in the show notes and following and rating the show on your podcast app. Our production team includes Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Vaughn Jones, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, Andy Hurst, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.